Hello Linux fans, Rob here and welcome to Linux Quest. Thanks for watching. So if you've been following my shenanigans over the last 24 hours, I've been in between two versions of OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed and Leap, and in the process of switching from Leap over to Tumbleweed, they released a snapshot of Apricity OS version 09 2016. Now Apricity is a distro that I looked at a couple weeks back and was impressed with. It is an Arch-based distribution that is a rolling release, and it's fairly young, but I think they've got many things spot on right out of the box for this young distribution. Um, you can tell that there is someone within the development team that has an eye for for appearance, and certainly here they've got a beautiful default wallpaper we're looking at that's fitting for this fall time of year. And so anyway, we're going to jump into some things now. I've noticed, and I've tried to go in and tweak a few things out. Didn't want to spend too much time doing it, but this is an overview. There is some screen tearing that's happening, so I apologize for that in the video. So I'm not going to launch the default browser here in this case, which is Chrome, and is just beautifully implemented into the theme. But I'm not going to launch it because the screen tearing is so bad, and you may see it here as well. But I just want to point out a few things. So let's jump in. One that I want to mention here, and I think this is new. I don't recall this being in the previous 07 snapshot. And that is freeze dry. Freeze dry is a feature that lets you go in and custom build, if you will, the Apricity OS. Now it's going to be based off of either GNOME or Cinnamon. Those are your two choices. That's their focus for desktop environments with Apricity. And so I logged in, signed up, logged in, and was able to see that someone had already built a Cinnamon desktop version of Apricity focused on WPS Office, which was awesome because I'm a big fan of that Office suite. They had stripped out LibreOffice, and I'm not a developer, I'm not a programmer, but the way it was set up, it looked like I could go in and intuitively, fairly easy go in and build my own distro off of Apricity OS. So I think that's just one more thing in the Linux tool belt when someone says, why do you use Linux over Windows, or why do you use it over Mac? This is just one more thing that you can, say, hey, because I can go in and build a system that works, for my interest, that it's custom. I build it for me. So that's kind of neat. And I think also this is going to help build the community around Apricity OS. So I want to mention that. And again, sorry for the screen tearing. We'll try to limit here. There's a couple of other things here that I wanted to mention. So pre-installed, they have Play on Linux, Steam, and Wine. And I just want to mention that because if you are someone who has in the past talked with a friend who says, I'd love to go to Linux, but I've got this one Windows application that, for work that I have to use, and I just see no way around it. Well, Play on Linux, Wine, has really kind of stepped up their game, and now you can install, Outlook and Office and things that are more recent versions of Windows software. So this would be a way for someone who truly has interest in Linux. They're not just looking for an excuse. This might allow them to go in and start using Linux and install that one piece of software that they have to have for work, as example. The other thing I wanted to mention is something that either I missed or maybe it is new, is something they call S-Backup. And they go on to say here that this is one of the easiest ways to back up your system. And they've got some features here they say that make it stand apart, which is that you can create both compressed and uncompressed backups. And you also have advanced options such as logging and email notification. So if this is a distribution you're going to look at, I would certainly say take a look at S-Backups. All right, so we're going to come out of this again for the screen tearing. And so as I mentioned earlier, they have two desktop options, GNOME and Cinnamon. The first time I looked at Apricity, I chose GNOME. This time around I chose Cinnamon, and I'm really glad that I did, because the more I use the Cinnamon desktop environment, the more I appreciate it. Cinnamon allows you to go in and tweak some things, and we'll look at that a little later on. But this theme that you see here is the default theme, and again, it's a very clean interface. I think this icon theme here for people who use Android, on a tablet or whatever, this will look familiar to you. You have categories, or I'm sorry, favorites here on the left. It's a little too light for me. The overall look is, while it's clean and attractive, it's kind of too stark white. You probably can't see this in the video, but over here at favorites you have a slightly off tinge of gray. And again, I'm not going to tweak the themes too much because you can go in and change it, but I just wanted you to see what you will see for the first time when you install this. But with that all said, for the benefits of the video here, I'm going to go ahead and let's change the theme. And so to do that, you launch into System Settings, and this is kind of their control center, if you will. And again, I like the layout here. I think this is default to the Cinnamon desktop environment. Those of you who are big-time Cinnamon users, correct me on this. But so anyway, the one thing I would change here, I would say, is that if you go over to a particular category, it'd be nice to either see that font change to bold or to see the background change here. I think it would help you focus on the category that you're working with. All right, so let's move over to themes. And what we want to change here is under desktop. So here you have two options, the default, which is Arctic Apricity, and then you have Cinnamon. So we're going to switch to Cinnamon, and you'll notice that the panel changed right away, as well as the menu launcher. And I think just for video purposes this will be easier to see. But while we're here and we're changing themes, you can change some other things here. Show icons in menu, show icons on button. And here's something that I kind of picked up on maybe here, is that they had that turned off by default. Typically you'll see that turned on in a lot of distributions, and I think they turned it off by default because it coincides with their clean interface, that classy clean look. All right, so let's go back. You can also change things like your window borders, your icons. Let's see here. All right, so not a huge number of icons to choose from, and some that are there aren't really that attractive in my opinion. So we'll leave that as it is. Under control, again here, nothing that I would change. And then you have mouse. While we're tweaking things, let's just talk about the interactive desktop. If you right click, you do have a long list of menus of options of things that you can do. You can add desklets. You can change the background. We're going to do that. You can get into desktop settings, and here you can choose which folders to show on your desktop. And so let's come on back out of that, and we're going to go ahead and change the wallpaper. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that the wallpaper has nothing to do with the function of the OS, but whoever picked out this group of wallpapers, this is the finest, nicest selection of high quality wallpapers I think I've ever seen in a distribution. And so again, I'm going to say someone in the Apricity development team has a real eye for appearance and for artistic look. So let's go down here and change to Sunset and just apply that. See what that looks like. Oh, that is stunning, just beautiful. So I want to go over just a few things too that are some of which may be new, some may have already been in place. And I should have gone back and looked at my first look at Apricity so that I would know exactly what was new, but I did not. So forgive me there. I'm going to go ahead and jump over, and we're going to look at some of the software that's installed, but I want to bounce around a little bit. This is more of a first look. I just wanted to give you an idea of what's going on here with this particular snapshot. So if you're using Apricity 07, maybe you'll see some changes here that will benefit you. And certainly if you're looking for a new distribution, I want to go over enough so that you can determine if maybe this is something you'd like to try. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit there. Two things I want to point out. One is pre-installed was Google Chrome as opposed to Firefox, and for me, I appreciate that. I'm, from the Windows days, I was a Google Chrome user, still am today, and to see this pre-installed and the way it matches the theme of the OS, they've done a phenomenal job there. I believe they tweaked something there, because this, when you launch Chrome, and I don't want to, well, we can do it. It's just going to be, there's going to be screen tearing. It's beautiful. It just matches the rest of the OS. The fonts and everything look the way they should. I actually had bumped those. Let's take those up to 100%. Again, the screen tearing, forgive me. this just looks great. This would be the browser that I would use within Apricity because of just how, I mean, it just looks like I launched this on Windows. And I say that because if you experiment with various browsers within the Linux world, you can get really different effects. You can, sometimes the fonts look okay, sometimes they look just terrible, depending on how you have your system set up and which OS you're running. Anyway, so I applaud you there. And also the benefit is that if you are coming from Windows, chances are you have used or are using Google Chrome, and so to have that there and set up is a plus for someone moving over. The other app that I really want to spend some time just talking about here briefly is ICE. Now, if you're interested in this after I describe what it is, you can go to the Peppermint OS video that I have, and I spend time there going through the setup process of ICE. And so you may want to check that one out. ICE allows you to use an online application, for example, Google Apps or Dropbox or Evernote, and it essentially creates a window around that application that lets you use that as you would a resident app on your system. And so I'll click into this. So we could go in and set up, say, Google Drive, for example, and now we would have a window similar to that you see here that would allow you to drag it around, move it around, minimize it, create a icon on your desktop or in the panel here, just like you would if it was an app that you had installed on the system. So I'm really happy to see that here and set up so that you can go in and set up your online applications that you work with. All right, so we'll move on from there. And as promised, we'll step through a few of the applications pre-installed. Two of the biggies here, Play on Linux and Steam, which we talked about. If you're a gamer, this will save you some time. And I'm guessing, I haven't tried it because I don't have a Steam account, but I'm guessing that they have pre-installed this and they've got it to where it works well, and you can just go in and set up your account, log in, and go from there. So really happy to see both of these, Play on Linux and Steam. Under graphics, you're going to see some of the usuals here: GIMP, Inkscape, default image viewer, I believe. Internet, we skipped over FileZilla, Transmission. Under Office, of course, LibreOffice. Qt here for programming. Under Sound and Video, you'll notice there's no VLC media player, and that's fine by me. As I've mentioned in other videos, I've had issues with VLC, the way it opens a video. It scales things out wrong. The controls sometimes lock up. I've just not been that impressed, and I used VLC religiously in Windows. I mean, that was my go-to media player. So there's some things going on there with VLC and Linux. I'm just not, maybe it's me, maybe it's user error, maybe I just, I haven't configured it properly or spent the time with it. But I think this is Totem here, and this may be default to Cinnamon. Let's see here, Totem. Yep, that's what that is, and I'm impressed with it. It works well. Let's go back in here. So we'll keep moving on. Universal access, and then under administration, you're going to see a lot of options there. You'll see add, remove software, and print settings, disk usage analyzer, software update. And there were 2 updates when I installed this. Small updates. They applied without issue. And so didn't spend a lot of time working with updates or have to worry about that. And then under preferences, you're going to see a list of what we saw there as we launched into the control panel: network configuration, themes, so on and so forth. I want to back up to something, and I want to make sure, I don't want to go out on a limb too much here. So when I launched in last night after the first install, I did not see a welcome screen. And I think with such a nice distribution here, with a nice OS like this, I think that would be one thing that they should consider adding, because you're doing so many things right with this distribution. And the reason I say a welcome screen of some kind is because while you see down here add, remove software was in the panel, and someone could discover that, I think if you had a welcome screen that also had the icon or the shortcut for add, remove software, as well as maybe documentation or what's new, and perhaps a link to the control panel and a link to your website, I think that would just be one additional nice feature to include. You've done so many things right in this OS. Again, speaking to the development team, I'm impressed with your attention to detail and the theming, because everything is cohesive, and it's, feels very fast. This feels very stable. Again, haven't spent much time, installed last night, but anyway, just that one suggestion there. All right, so let's move over and talk a little bit about the Cinnamon desktop for those of you who aren't familiar with Cinnamon. And I am certainly not a veteran to the Cinnamon desktop environment. I like it. The more I use it, the more I like it. It is easy to go in and configure, and I want to talk about how the Cinnamon versus GNOME applies, and this is just my opinion. I know there are tools and things you can add to the GNOME desktop environment to go in and really deeply get into deep settings and tweaking and things like that with GNOME, but I just feel like it's easier to do within Cinnamon and that you have more control there. So I'm going to go into some of those tweaks and settings and things like that. So one of the areas that you can change out is the panel here. And so let me go ahead and close this out. And so to change things in the panel, you simply right click and you have a convenient panel edit mode. And I'll point out again, these toggle switches lend themselves well to a touch interface. And we're starting to see more of that in desktop environments. And that's a good thing, because I have two computers that have a touch screen. So once you've turned on panel edit mode, now you will have some options. You have one here that is modify panel, and then you have another here that is panel settings. Now, you see that launches into a new window. I think it would be nice if you had under modify panel the same, or if you combine the two, if you combined panel settings with modify panel, that way you have one place to go to adjust those settings. I think that'd be nice. So I want to go ahead and we'll go into modify panel, and here we can add a panel, remove a panel, or move the panel. Now I also want to point out that you see a color change here once you have turned on edit mode. Great job here, whoever came up with this, because I have been into the mix of changing things, and I'm like in an edit mode, and there's nothing that really highlights that you're in edit mode, and I've accidentally deleted things because I was in edit mode without really being aware of it. I wasn't paying attention. This, you can't miss it. It changes the color in such a way that you know, hey, something's going on here. So, okay, let's go back in. So now we want to move the panel. I was also impressed with this. So we click Move Panel. Now, you probably won't see this with the video, but you see a slight change in the color here. If I hover over it, you'll see the change. That tells me that if I click here, and you'll see it here, it's going to move that panel to the top. Now, there were no options for left and right. You get top or bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and move that back to the bottom. All right. So it's that easy. Now we also have some other settings which involve themes, and that would take us back into the theme setting we were looking at earlier. We can also go into panel settings, and you can toggle off or on customize panel size, and so that's going to be the height of the panel here. So we're going to increase this quite a bit so that you can see. Now that's a huge adjustment, and I have no idea why you would want a panel that large. Maybe if you're visually impaired, this would be something to certainly take note of. But at any rate, it's also nice to see that when you adjust the panel to that size, the icons scale up without becoming blurry and grainy looking. So that's nice to see. But and for the sake of people who are visually impaired, I'm just going to go ahead and adjust that up so you can get an idea of what that might look like. Perhaps that helps you use your computer, and if it does, that's a great thing. So we'll take this back to a more normal size, more traditional size. You could also add a new panel here. You can allow Cinnamon to scale the panel text and icons according to the panel height, so we could have turned that off. So that feature was turned on, and that's why you saw everything scale up very nicely the way that it did. You can choose the options for hiding the panel, intelligent hide, auto hide. So lots of control there for sure. Some other areas, let me go ahead and take this out of edit mode. and some other areas that you can go in and change things. You see I have a Linux Quest here under the menu launcher, and that's very easy to do. You right click and go to configure, and so here you can simply type in, so if we wanted this to say go, for example, and you'll see that's changed already. You can choose to show category icons, application icons, favorites. I'm going to toggle favorites off, and we'll take a look at that. You could also add a custom icon here, so you could simply download a high-res icon. And then you can go in and alter your keyboard shortcuts for those of you who are keyboard pros that like to set up all your shortcuts. Lots of options here, by the way, for doing that. So again, I like the control. I like the tweakability of the Cinnamon desktop. The other thing I'll mention here, and I haven't seen this even in KDE. Within KDE, you have to right-click on the panel, go to Settings before you can do this. But with Cinnamon, you can simply click and drag the icon on the panel. And again, it doesn't get much easier than that. So we're going to drop that here for now. And it's also very easy to add an application to the panel. So let's go into Office. If we wanted to add Writer to the panel, we simply right-click, and now you have three options: Add to Panel, Add to Desktop, Add to Favorites. So we're going to Add to Panel. Now we have two, but I want to remove it. So I right-click, and I'm going to say Remove. I could also go to Launch, Add or Edit, or New Document. So it's interactive in that once I right-click on that, I have options other than just launching the application. So we're going to go to Remove. All right, so let's move on here. And I know I'm skipping around a bit. I want to go into the File Manager. This is a very capable file manager. If you are someone who, I'll classify as a power user, you like to go in and set things up a particular way in your file manager, I think you're going to find all of the options here for that. So if we go into Preferences, Behavior, you've got single click to open, double click to open, include a delete command, which is a pet peeve of mine. I want to always have that option. Bypass the trash when the delete key is pressed. That's very nice to have. You can scale the default zoom levels, compact views, so on and so forth. Some of you are familiar with this. I believe this is the default file manager within Cinnamon. Let's see what this is. Nemo. So yes, Nemo, I'm 99.9% sure is default in Cinnamon, and I would say it's, as far as file managers go for me, this is number 2 on my list. Dolphin, you wouldn't want to use Dolphin here, but I appreciate Dolphin in KDE. But this would certainly be number 2 on the list. I'm not crazy about their choice of icon theme here. It's a little cartoonish for me, but it fits in with the rest of the theme okay. Not that the theme is cartoonish. I just think you can find those on your own, obviously, but I think maybe something that's not as cartoonish would be a good option next time. But that's personal preference there. To each his own. We all have opinions there. All right, so for the sake of time, I feel like there's something major that I'm missing, but for the sake of time, I'm probably going to wrap this up. My goal here was to show you enough. Let's go into keyboard shortcuts, okay, because I mentioned that earlier before I wrap it up. I dug through this. So if you are someone who likes to go in and set up your keyboard commands, and perhaps you have various layouts, I think you are going to find all of the options that you desire here for keyboard shortcuts and commands and control with the keyboard. And again, I'm not one who spends a lot of time setting up keyboard commands and that kind of thing. I just don't interact that way. But if you do, I think I wanted to point this out since we mentioned that earlier. Oh, there's a couple other things here. Sorry, folks. I want to go in and just point this out. This is one where I think they could do a better job, and I believe this is Cinnamon related, not Apricity OS related. So if you go into Configure here, you have to go in and actually change the format if you want to toggle from 24-hour. Also, there was a date in here earlier, and I took that part out, so you may see once you launch in by default a date. I just wanted it to be 12-hour clock with no date. Now, you control it here, and I want to mention this because this is, I'm not going to call it a bug. I'm just going to say this is where the UI sometimes one oversteps the other, and I think that's what we get in this case. Oh, I had toggled off favorites, it looks like. So let's go back over here to, where did I put it? All right, let's go into preferences. Bear with me here. Where did we find that? It's going to be under time, okay. Well, let's go to clock. No. Let's go to date. Ah, there we go, date and time. So you see there's a very nice search function for the different applications. So what I was discussing earlier here, since I had that awkward pause, so here we have use 24-hour clock. This does nothing. So I could go in and change these settings. Now I say it does nothing. I could go in, we can unlock this. Perhaps that's it. Maybe I'm missing something, user error. So let's toggle display date, 24-hour time. See, this does nothing. Let's take the time up. Now perhaps I have to log out. I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure I tried that. So this actual control here, for whatever reason, doesn't override what's going on here. Let's change the date and see if it changes in the calendar here. So nothing else to apply. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Now let's go to date. See, that did not change date. So there's some cross settings here that between the Cinnamon desktop and the OS settings, something is not connecting. So I want to point that out. I will say too that I have found in the shutdown process a delay a few times. Now everything else has been running just for the short period of time I've been using this OS. It's been fast and smooth and just, you know, really fun to use. So, but I've noticed again the time setting thing there, that whatever you want to call that, I don't know if that's a bug or just a switch that needs to be flipped. But the other thing I found was during shutdown, and so I had like a 30-second delay, 35-second delay once, and then it went into shutdown and rebooted, came back in, tried it again, and same thing, there was a shutdown delay. And so you know, don't know what's going on there, but I'll bring that up in case you experience the same thing. Then, you know, this may be something to file a bug report on or something like that. But overall, if you are an Apricity user, you definitely may want to check this one out, because I think there are a few new things added. If you are someone who you know, you're looking for a new distro to try, and you haven't been involved with the Arch world, and oh gosh, here I am forgetting things. I wanted to show this. This is PAMAC or PAMAC, however they pronounce it, for your software control of version 4.1. You can turn on, for people who are familiar with Arch, you can turn on the Arch user repository. If you're not familiar with Arch, the Arch user repository opens up a world of additional software for you. So it may not be in the official repository or the repository from Apricity OS that they set up for the OS, but if you turn on the Arch user repository, you have greatly expanded your choice of software that you can install from their software manager. So I want to make sure I mention that. And so I've got that turned on, and also it is turned on to search in the AUR. All right, so now this time I'm really going to wrap it up. I hope this is helpful. Again, if you're looking for a new OS to try, I would certainly give this a try. I think you know, that they're doing a lot the way they should be doing it here, you know, with overall UI, the speed, attention to detail. Run into a few little issues here, but for the most part, I think I'm going to install this on one of my test systems and maybe spend a little more time with it. So, give it a look, and we'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching again, and we will check you later.